The young and the restless Spoilers Amy's return to Genoa was meant to be a joyful homecoming, a celebration of renewed health and a fresh start. After receiving confirmation that her condition had stabilized, she had eagerly anticipated reuniting with loved ones and sharing the uplifting news. The familiar streets, the comforting architecture of the town, and the warm smiles of old friends all stirred memories of happier times. Yet, nothing could have prepared her for the heartache that awaited her. Upon her arrival, Amy was greeted by a bustling scene at the community center where residents had gathered to welcome her back. The air was filled with laughter and chatter as she exchanged pleasantries and embraced familiar faces. However, as the evening progressed, an undercurrent of discord began to emerge. Amid the lively celebration, a heated argument broke out between two men, Damian and Nate. Their voices, raised in anger and frustration, sliced through the jovial atmosphere like a cold wind. Amy's heart sank as she watched the confrontation unfold. She had always believed that family should be a source of strength and unity, yet here was a painful display of discord. Nate's impassioned pleas for reconciliation clashed with Damian's stubborn retorts and evasive demeanor. It was clear to Amy that this was no ordinary dispute. There was a depth of tension and unspoken secrets simmering beneath the surface. The sight of the two brothers at odds left her deeply saddened, and she found herself questioning the stability of the familial bonds she had once taken for granted. In the quiet moments after the argument, Amy retreated to a secluded corner of the venue, her thoughts swirling with worry. As she observed the remnants of the celebration and listened to the whispers of concerned onlookers, one gnawing question began to take root in her mind. Could it be that Damian was not truly the son she had believed him to be? The question was as shocking as it was unthinkable, a betrayal of the deepest kind. The Damian she had known, the one who had shared both her joys and sorrows, now seemed cloaked in a mystery that defied explanation. His secretive nature, his constant evasion when asked about his past, and his involvement in disputes that went beyond the simple squabbles of a troubled family, all these pointed toward a possibility that shook her to the core. Determined to unearth the truth, Amy resolved to find answers on her own. She knew that in matters of the heart and family, relying solely on hearsay was a risk she could not afford. There was one person in Genoa whom everyone trusted implicitly when it came to uncovering hidden truths, a woman named Elena. Renowned for her meticulous work with DNA tests and her unwavering commitment to confidentiality, Elena had built a reputation as a guardian of secrets and a seeker of truth. Amy felt that if there was any hope of finding clarity, it lay with Elena. Late one night, under the cover of darkness and with a resolve hardened by worry, Amy sought out Elena. The meeting was arranged in a quiet, discreet corner of Elena's modest office, a place that exuded both professionalism and a palpable sense of empathy. With a trembling hand, Amy explained her predicament, her voice laden with a mixture of fear and sorrow. "Elena, I need you to conduct a DNA test, one for me and one for Damian," she confessed, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I must know if he is truly my son, or if there is something else behind his mysterious behavior." Elena listened intently, her expression a blend of compassion and concern. She understood the gravity of Amy's request. The ramifications of such a revelation could shatter the fragile equilibrium of a family already riddled with strife. Nevertheless, Elena agreed to proceed with the tests, assuring Amy that every measure would be taken to ensure secrecy. The tests would be carried out without drawing unwanted attention, protecting Amy's privacy as well as that of her family. Days turned into an agonizing wait, each moment stretching out as Amy grappled with a storm of conflicting emotions. In the interim, life in Genoa continued to churn, with Damian and Nate's bitter dispute casting a long shadow over the community. Rumors began to spread like wildfire, whispers of betrayal, hidden agendas, and a sinister plot unfolding behind closed doors. The town, once united in celebration of Amy's recovery, now found itself divided by suspicion and mistrust. At long last, the day arrived when Elena contacted Amy with the results. With a heavy heart and a mind bracing for the worst, Amy met Elena in the same discreet location as before. Elena's demeanor was solemn as she laid out the findings, each word delivered with a measured gravity that underscored the seriousness of the revelation. The test results painted a startling picture. Damian's genetic makeup did not align with what Amy had long assumed. The evidence was irrefutable. There were discrepancies that suggested Damian was not, in fact, her biological son. The impact of the news was shattering. For years, Amy had clung to a narrative of unconditional love and familial unity, a story in which every twist and turn made sense, even if it was occasionally marred by disagreements and hidden pain. Now that narrative lay in ruins, its pieces scattered like shards of glass across the floor of her heart. How could the man she had raised, the man she had loved as her own, harbor such a dark secret? What other truths had he concealed, and what were his true motives? As the weight of the revelation sank in, Amy's thoughts turned to Damian's behavior. His habitual secrecy, his reluctance to share personal details, and his involvement in questionable schemes now took on a new, more sinister hue. It became increasingly apparent that Damian had been deceiving her, not merely about his lineage but perhaps about his very intentions. The notion that he might be plotting something, leveraging the trust she had placed in him to serve his own dark agenda, was a thought that chilled her to the bone. In the days that followed, Amy embarked on a solitary quest for further answers. No longer content to simply accept the results, she began to retrace the steps of the past, searching for clues in old photographs, faded letters, and whispered conversations long buried in the annals of Genoa's history. Each discovery only deepened the mystery, painting a portrait of a man whose life had been shrouded in layers of deception and hidden motives. Damian, once a source of pride and hope, now loomed as an enigma, an intricate puzzle that defied resolution. Amy's inner turmoil was compounded by the fact that her discovery had the potential to ignite further conflict within the family. The rift between Damian and Nate had already weakened the bonds that held them together, and the new information threatened to widen that divide irreparably. She agonized over whether to confront Damian directly, knowing that such an encounter could provoke him into taking drastic measures to conceal his secrets. Yet, the need for truth outweighed her fear of further upheaval. Determined to confront the specter of betrayal head-on, Amy resolved that she would soon seek out Damian for a conversation that could redefine their relationship and perhaps, in time, heal the deep wounds that had festered in silence. The ensuing confrontation was as tense as it was emotional. In a quiet corner of a deserted park, under the watchful gaze of ancient oak trees, Amy found Damian waiting. His expression was inscrutable, a mask of calm concealing a torrent of hidden emotions. As Amy approached, her voice trembled with a mixture of resolve and sorrow. "Damian, we need to talk," she began softly, the simple words carrying the weight of a lifetime of unspoken questions. "I know the truth now, and I need you to tell me, who are you really? What have you been hiding?" For a long, agonizing moment, Damian said nothing. The silence stretched out between them, punctuated only by the rustling of leaves in the cool evening breeze. Finally, his eyes, dark and guarded, met hers. In that moment, Amy saw not only the reflection of her own pain but also the unmistakable signs of a man burdened by secrets too heavy to bear. His voice, when it came, was low and measured, laced with regret and defiance. "There are things in this world that you were never meant to understand," he replied cryptically, refusing to offer any clear explanation. "Sometimes, the truth is too dangerous, too destructive for the ones we love." The conversation that ensued was fraught with accusations, painful memories, and the desperate longing for reconciliation. Amy pleaded for honesty, for the chance to rebuild the foundation of trust that had been so violently shattered. Damian, torn between a fierce loyalty to his own hidden agenda and a reluctant desire to protect the fragile remnants of their bond, wavered on the brink of confession. In the end, however, he chose silence, leaving Amy with more questions than answers and a heart that ached with the weight of unfulfilled expectations. As the confrontation drew to a close, Amy stood alone under the starlit sky, grappling with the enormity of her discovery. The realization that the man she had once known might not be who he appeared to be was a bitter pill to swallow. Yet, amid the pain and betrayal, there was a spark of determination, a resolve to uncover every hidden truth, no matter how painful it might be. Amy vowed that she would not allow the darkness of deception to define her life or the lives of those she loved. Instead, she would forge a new path, one built on the unyielding pursuit of truth, even if it meant walking a lonely road. In the weeks and months that followed, as Genoa slowly began to mend its fractured relationships, Amy continued her quest for answers. The community, once rocked by the turbulence of family discord, watched in silent awe as she navigated the treacherous terrain of secrets and lies. Each step forward was a testament to her strength and her unwavering belief that the truth, no matter how elusive, was worth the struggle. And though Damian remained an enigma, a man whose loyalty and intentions were now forever in question, Amy's resolve to protect her family and reclaim the narrative of her life burned brighter than ever. Ultimately, the truth that had been unearthed was a catalyst for change. While it may have severed one tie, it also paved the way for a deeper understanding of the intricate, often painful, nature of love and loyalty. Amy learned that the path to healing was not a straight line, but a winding journey marked by moments of heartache, confrontation, and ultimately, redemption. And in the quiet determination of one woman willing to confront the darkest secrets of her past, there shone a promise that even in the face of betrayal, the light of truth could illuminate a path toward a better, more honest future. Amy's heart pounded as she reviewed the damning evidence spread out before her. A collection of documents, tampered DNA results, and photographs that painted a picture of betrayal so profound it threatened to unravel the very fabric of her family. In the weeks following her return to Genoa, a series of events had led her down a path of suspicion and heartache. At first, it was the heated argument between Damian and Nate, an explosive dispute that had hinted at deeper, darker secrets festering within the Winters family. Now, with the latest revelation, Amy's worst fears were coming to life. It turned out that Damian, the man she had once believed to be her wayward son, was nothing more than a carefully constructed facade. Behind his cold, unyielding demeanor, he had orchestrated an elaborate deception. Damian had not only faked his own DNA results but had also deliberately disseminated this counterfeit proof among the family and trusted allies. His calculated act was twofold: to sever the emotional ties that bound him to Amy by showing disdain for the notion of a familial bond, and to proclaim to the world that he was self-sufficient, unburdened by the responsibilities and vulnerabilities of family ties. With an air of detached arrogance, he had made it clear that he did not need the care and connection that came with being Amy's son. But who was this imposter, this Damian Kia, really? And more hauntingly, who then was the true child of Amy Winters? These questions burned relentlessly in Amy's mind. The falsified DNA evidence was not merely an act of defiance, it was an insidious attempt to redefine her identity as a mother and the legacy of the Winters family. It was as if Damian, in his quest to free himself from any ties, had engineered a complete rewrite of his own origins. No one in Genoa, not even the closest confidants like Nate, had any inkling of the truth. Instead, they had been fed a narrative that fit neatly into Damian's vision of a self-made man, unencumbered by the emotional baggage of a family that, in his eyes, was a liability. For Amy, the revelation was a brutal awakening. Her maternal instincts, once filled with warmth and unconditional love, were now clouded by the sting of betrayal and regret. The impostor's actions cut deep, for she had long hoped that her return to Genoa would mend old wounds and restore the sense of unity that had defined the Winters' legacy. Yet here she was, grappling with the crushing realization that one of her own had chosen deception over the truth. Worse still, the web of lies extended beyond Damian. It threatened to ensnare Nate and the rest of the Winters clan in a trap of uncertainty and deceit. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Amy as she contemplated the future. She knew that leaving the false narrative unchallenged would only invite further chaos into an already fractured family. It was not just about setting the record straight for herself, it was about protecting Nate and every member of the Winters family from the dangers of misinformation and the potential fallout of Damian's machinations. The stakes were high. If Damian's true identity and his ulterior motives were allowed to remain hidden, the entire family could become collateral damage in a larger, more dangerous game. Haunted by her own missteps, mistakes born of misplaced trust and a failure to see the warning signs, Amy resolved to take decisive action. She was painfully aware that part of the blame lay with her. In her efforts to hold on to the hope of family unity, she had perhaps turned a blind eye to the subtle signals of Damian's duplicity. Now, with the truth glaringly apparent, she could no longer afford to remain passive. The path ahead was fraught with emotional peril, but the alternative, allowing deceit to govern the future of her family, was unthinkable. In a quiet moment of introspection, Amy made a solemn vow. She would expose the impostor's lies, no matter the personal cost. The confrontation that loomed on the horizon was not one she had ever desired, yet it was now inevitable. Her first step would be to confront the evidence head-on and, in doing so, peel back the layers of Damian's intricate charade. She knew that many questions still lingered in the air. Who exactly was Damian Kia beneath the veneer of fabricated identity? And, perhaps even more disturbingly, who was her true son, the one whose existence had been obscured by Damian's elaborate ruse? The truth, elusive and shrouded in mystery, had to be uncovered. Amy reached out to Elena once again, the trusted specialist whose discretion and skill with DNA analysis had once offered her a glimmer of hope. This time, the request was more urgent and more personal. Under the cloak of secrecy, she arranged a private meeting with Elena in a secluded corner of her modest office. The room, dimly lit and filled with the soft hum of quiet determination, became the stage for what could be the most critical moment of Amy's life. Elena, Amy began, her voice steady despite the turmoil swirling within her, I need another DNA test. Not just to confirm what we already suspect, but to dig deeper into the truth. I need to know who my real son is, and I need to uncover the full extent of the deception behind Damian's actions. Elena, with a grave nod, acknowledged the gravity of Amy's request. The process would be discreet, carried out in complete secrecy to avoid alerting anyone who might try to sabotage the truth. Days turned into a suspenseful wait, each moment punctuated by Amy's anxious vigil. The quiet of Genoa belied the storm brewing beneath the surface, as whispers of betrayal began to circulate among the townspeople. Nate, unaware of the full scope of the conspiracy, sensed that the situation was more perilous than it appeared. The fractures within the Winters family were widening, and the potential for further harm loomed like a dark cloud over their future. Finally, the moment of reckoning arrived. Elena, with her characteristic blend of professionalism and empathy, contacted Amy with the results. The laboratory report, meticulously verified and unassailable, delivered a verdict that sent shockwaves through Amy's soul. The genetic markers clearly indicated that Damian's DNA did not match what one would expect from her biological lineage. The evidence was irrefutable. Damian's carefully constructed narrative was nothing more than a facade, a desperate attempt to sever the ties that bound him to the family he had so bitterly renounced. The revelation was devastating. Amy felt an overwhelming mixture of sorrow, betrayal, and even a bitter sense of responsibility. She had once believed that love could bridge any divide, that no secret was too dark to be illuminated by truth. Now, that belief was shaken to its core. How could the son she thought she knew choose to manipulate her trust so completely? And who, then, was the true heir of her legacy? The answers were shrouded in mystery, locked away behind Damian's deliberate obfuscation. Determined to reclaim the honor and safety of the Winters family, Amy steeled herself for the difficult confrontation ahead. She knew that exposing Damian's deceit would not only bring clarity but would also serve as a safeguard for Nate and the rest of her kin. No longer could she allow the specter of Damian Kia to cast a pall over the family's future. The time had come to bring the truth into the light, even if it meant unraveling the cherished memories of a family once held together by fragile threads of trust. In the days that followed, Amy embarked on a relentless pursuit of answers. She began meticulously reviewing old records, poring over personal letters, and even seeking out long-forgotten conversations that might hint at the true identity of her biological son. Every discovery, every clue, fueled her determination to expose the impostor for what he truly was, a man willing to sacrifice family and honor for his own twisted agenda. It was a painful journey, one that forced her to confront her own shortcomings and question the foundations upon which her family had been built. As the confrontation with Damian loomed nearer, tension mounted not only within Amy's heart but throughout the Winters household. Nate, who had long harbored concerns over Damian's secretive behavior, now sensed that the time for answers was imminent. The stage was set for a reckoning that would either heal the family or shatter it beyond repair. Finally, on a chilly evening under a sky scattered with reluctant stars, Amy arranged a private meeting with Damian in an abandoned garden. A place that had once been a symbol of family gatherings and shared joy. The garden, now overgrown and shadowed by neglect, bore silent witness to the coming storm. As they sat facing each other on a weathered bench, the air thick with the promise of confrontation.